started. All right, we are here in week 12. Week 12. Wow. We're almost at the halfway point. Um, your projects take up a good choice. We are at the halfway, aren't we? I forget, we're 20 something weeks long in this course. So we're at, or if not close to halfway through, and most of the end is going to be your personal and group projects. So awesome. First, congrats for making it this far. If you take a moment and reflect on what we were doing weeks 1, 2, 3, struggling to try to even write um, a function to do something. And now here we are learning Django. So week 12, day 4, we are learning Django this week. Got introduced day 1, 2, and 3 to different aspects. We learned how to start a Django project, which I wish we did more review over. We might later today start one from scratch again, but if you don't remember how to start up a Django project, this is another great helpful page to bookmark, to remember all the use. Let's see down here, your virtual environments, how to install it, how to start your project, how to get your requirements text up and running, all this jazz. So this is a very good lecture, or if you're forgetting how to get your project up and running, we'll walk you through it nicely. So you can go ahead and pull that up if you want, but in today's lecture, we're actually going to start with what we've been doing this whole week. We've been working in a Pokemon repo, which when I clicked on this earlier this morning, I found that it's broken. So how you can find that, let's see, I think we started, I guess it's in day 1. If you find, no, it's not. You set it up in day 1. Okay, so day 2, hopefully this one works. Nope, that doesn't work either. I will drop the link. Let me find the link to the Pokemon repo. But we're going to be continue on with that. So if y'all have it still from Thursday, go ahead and pull that up if you want to work with me. Otherwise, you could just watch. I will get you the link to the repo so you could pull it up, and I will show you how we can change to the different branch, because this repo has, no, I don't want to do that. It has a bunch of different branches. We have like end of day 1, 2, 3, a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, lots of branches. So show you how to pick the one that we need. Let me first find this repo real fast. I should have done this earlier. Repo. This is the Django Pokemon. And if anybody finds it faster than me and drops the link in the chat, that'd be awesome. Wait, what? No repositories match that. Sure doesn't. I am looking through. Okay, well, do we all have the project you've been working through, if you've been following along?
Yes.
Okay, I will work on getting that over here and connected and poke Jordan, because it doesn't look like he moved it over to hotel. We will see. Okay, I don't want to delay much longer. So if you have it from where you were at on Thursday with the validation, great. That's where we ended. If you expand your Pokemon app and look at validators, you have your validations thrown in there and your tests. No, that's not where they are. It's right here. Tests, sorry. For those validations and creating the Pokemon. So we are picking up from there. Today we are covering associations. I can't remember if I said this while I was recording, so I'm going to reiterate it. We learned how to make in our Pokemon app a model. And this model is basically our database table in Postgres. Instead of working in SQL, we're using Python to talk between SQL and our backend here. And Django, I'm sorry, we're using Django, the framework, to be able to use Python to do that. And it makes it really easy to just kind of identify these columns we'll have in our database table and start making some functions that can also interact with that database table. So we have one so far. We've created a Pokemon. Were there any questions with how we set this up? I think it was on Tuesday on how to we make them in classes and for our models, and we inherit from models.model. So that kind of gives us a framework on how our model will look. And we have our different columns, their names, and then what type of field they are. And then, of course, we have some validations in there and some requirements. We learned about the validators last time. Okay, so having a Pokemon is great, but everybody that's a Pokemon nerd like me knows that Pokemons have moves that they can use. They're not just a name and you get them and they're good. You also have moves associated with this Pokemon. And since a lot of these moves are reused, like multiple Pokemon have the same type of move, I'm not going to just throw in a move field and make it its own like thing, text field or text field. We could do choices too, but I'm not going to do that because I would find myself repeating. I'd be entering like the move Razor Leaf. Lots of grass type Pokemon know that move, and I'd be entering it over and over and over again. I don't want to do that. I just want to like, if you imagine, I use this a lot. If you're the user on a UI, if it makes sense to use a drop-down menu to select something, you're going to want to make a relationship, like a one-to-many relationship to do that, because it's a repeated value over and over again. And we're not going to want to type it in every time. We just want to choose it from another table. So first things first, we don't want to just throw move in here. We can make another class within this app, but this app's called Pokemon. And by putting Pokemon or move inside this Pokemon app, it just makes it a little confusing for somebody else who comes in afterwards and is like, well, where's their moves? I don't see anything that says moves. I see Pokemon. And so I assume that's just Pokemon stuff in that model. So with our object-oriented programming, we like to, separate everything in a way that makes sense and keep it kind of containerized in a way so that if something goes wrong, we can mess with just that one individual aspect instead of the whole program. So I don't want to put it in a Pokemon app. It doesn't make sense for me to throw moves into a Pokemon app because this is just about Pokemon. So I'm going to create a whole new app. Our project is still going to be the Pokedex project. That is the main overhead of our whole app here. It's all a Pokedex project. But we can create different apps within this that hold different things, and they will all work together nicely. So we're going to make a move app now because that makes sense to have moves under a move app and Pokemon under a Pokemon app. Without looking, does anybody remember how to create an app in Django? First, make sure also that you're in your virtual environment if you are following along because that will mess you up. But how do I make a new app within this project? I'm going to give you a hint. Pretty much everything you do in a Django project will always use this manage file because this is the entry point into Django here.
You can do
Yeah, go ahead.
you can do Python manage.py start app and the app name.
Perfect. Yeah. So manage.py is our powerhouse program here. We will call it using Python like we usually do when we call a Python file. And we're using something in there called start app. And it's hard coded in the back end to do everything we need to do to create a new app that we give the name Move app. Now, when I start that up, I can see I have another application here. Underneath every application, you're going to have your init file, you're going to have an admin file, apps, models, tests, and views. We are sticking closely with models as we're in this first week here, and then we're adding a few other things, of course, but models is always where your database table is going to go. So I've created a new app. Will this app just work seamlessly with everything else right now? No. I see Nicole taking note, Art kind of go back and forth. Okay, Nicole, why will this not work together with everything else at this point?
Well, you have to go into your settings and add it
Correct.
under the, install that.
Perfect. Yes. Under our project, which is a higher level authority in our overall project, we need to tell it what apps we are working with. Otherwise, it doesn't see it and it can't work together. They won't work together with each other. So we've got Pokemon app already added. Now let's go ahead and add this Move app. Should always be one of the first things you do after you add a new application is add it in installed apps. Otherwise, you'll start getting carried away, doing a lot of coding, go to run it and wonder why the heck it's not working. So after you create an app, always throw it in your settings file in the project and throw it under your installed apps. I also, out of habit, put a comma here because chances are I throw in other apps and it just helps me remember to separate them by commas. Again, you don't have to because it's the last one in this list. We can also just take the comma out, but I leave it in just to be safe. Okay, so that's all we're doing here. We created a new app that we're about to start adding a new table for, and we've added it to our installed apps. Let me go back to that models. We're not working with Pokemon right now. We're going to make our move model, which this is going to be our table that holds information about a Pokemon move. So I'm imagining like the move name. It has other stuff like accuracy, PP, power, all this nerdy stuff associated with each move. So we're going to create that table here. How do I start creating my model? We talked about how we create models briefly a little earlier. How do we structure a model? What type of data structure do we use in Python?
Class?
Yes, we use a class. So our model needs to be under a class. And let's name it logically, right? We're making a move model here to hold moves, information about moves. So I'm going to name it move. And we inherit from something built into Django, right? So Django did a lot of work for us, so we don't have to do as much on our end here. So we're going to inherit from model.model. That's just going to be, or sorry, models. Look, it's telling me I don't have a model. This is going to be something you just throw in out of habit eventually. You can get fancy and do there's other things you can inherit, but for our purposes, we're pretty much going to use the standard model which if we click it with our control click, we can see how Django actually handles making a model. Thank you, Django, for us not having to do all this. Okay, so we have a class called move now. what do we put underneath the class now? How do we define our database table here?
You start with the fields you want to use for it.
Exactly. This is where we start throwing in the fields that we want, basically those database columns, if you're thinking like that. These are the fields that we want in this move table. So we've already said we're going to have a name. Pretty much everything's going to have a name, these moves. And you need to define what this field is in terms of what type of data it will be able to have input into it. So a lot of times you will use the character field. And it's always going to be models dot, because we're taking everything from this models library that's included in Django. So models dot character field. We could see all the different things you can pass into this character field. We're going to do like a max length to make sure that they can't do any SQL injection or anything kind of crazy on the front end. So we're going to restrict it to 250 characters. We're going to make sure that this has to be included. They can't make a move without giving it a name. It's like the bare minimum. So we're going to say that null equals false. This just means that, oh my gosh, null equals false. This cannot be empty. Okay, it can't be null. We also, another version of empty is blank. So we're also going to make sure that's false as well. Yes, Art.
I'm picturing what we learned, like going back to this schema of our different tables, and everything started with an ID. And if we're going to be linking these different tables, why don't we start with an ID to be able to link those?
We do not start with an ID because Django automatically handles creating one for us in the Postgres database. It's smart enough to know that when we insert something, it will automatically assign a primary key ID to it.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Yep. And we will look at, once we make these associations here between this move and the Pokemon, I will show you how to query, because it's a little bit different, right? How we query between the Pokemon and moves models. But we'll go into that towards the end of the lecture. So let's just keep setting up. We don't ever specify ID because that's going to be automatically handled. Every time a new entry is created, you'll automatically get a new ID associated with it. So you'll be able to go into your SQL database and see those IDs, but you don't have to explicitly do that on your end. It's like the, oh, how do we do that in SQL? That like just, make the primary key for me stuff you threw in the tables. We don't have to do that here. It just does it. It's great. Looks like we also have a validators we're going to make. I'm just following along with the README here. So we're going to do a validator. And we're going to make a special one because there's nothing built in that can help me with this. So we're going to make a validate move name validator for this. I'm just going to name it here and we will work on it in a bit. Just because I know I want to write a validation to validate move names to make sure it's appropriate. This is important because, like I said, if somebody's on the front end and you don't restrict length or validate, they can submit whatever they want in this field. They could submit SQL queries and statements in this field, and it'll work on your database and it'll mess up things for you. So we need to restrict. So I'm going to make a validator eventually, but we're going to move on to the next field first. We're going to get our model set up first before I work on these validations. Another thing that's in with Pokemon moves, you may not be nerdy enough to know this or old enough, I guess now, to know this. We have accuracy. It's usually just a number value of how accurate this move is, like how frequently it hits. So let's go ahead and make this, and let's see. We can do integer field, but we're going to make sure that we can't have negative numbers because that's not how this works. So we're going to make it a positive integer field. Django documentation can show you all the different types of fields you can have in your models. So it's worth looking at the documentation to see just exactly what you can work with. But chances are you're going to be using a lot of character field. You're going to be using a lot of integer field. And that's going to be the meat of most of your fields. Email, there's an email field as well. But there are a little bit more fancy ones like this positive integer field. This one, I'm not going to require they put something in, but I also don't want this to be empty in the database. So I'm going to give a default value. So that way, if they don't put in an accuracy when a move is created, it will already have an accuracy assigned to it. So all of them, if they don't get changed, they're going to be an accuracy of 70. We're also going to make another validator for this one too, I guess. But I'm going to use built-in Django validators because I'm going to set like a min and max value that this can be between. My accuracy can only be between 1 and 100. You can't be more than 100% of the time, and you can't be less than 1% of the time, basically. So with Django's built-in validators, we need to import them, right? They don't just come automatically. If I were to start trying to write down here like validators, it's gonna be like, what is that? So we need to import that. That's coming from Django core. We're going to import validators. You can simply import validators and type down here validators, but then that's a mouthful, handful, whatever when you're typing. So let's give it an alias. So now every time we type V, it's going to know we mean this validators module here. So we're going to pull, and we can already see it's giving me some options here that come in. Oh, look, there's a max length, max value. That sounds like something I would use, but just for readability, I'm going to start with the minimum value. Min value validator. So I've said that this can't be less than 1, and it can't be more than, let's see, that's max value, more than 100. What am I doing wrong here? Oh, I gotta end with the validators. I didn't put this. Okay. Validators have to be wrapped in the square brackets. And I've given 2 different validators in here. These are built-in ones. And these are all held within my positive integer field. All right, so that validates it, gives it a minimum value can't be less than 1 and a maximum value over 100. I'm going to fly through the next ones. I'm just going to grab them and throw them in here. And we will take a look at them. XPP. Put it all in one line so it's easier for us to see. Okay. This is just from the README. So we also have a max PP field. This is an integer field, not just a positive integer field. So that's allowing it to go into the negative. However, we could see we have a validate here that says it can't be less than 5. Right? Our min value is going to be 5 and our max is going to be 30. So it has to be between those. Again, we passed a default value. So it's required, but we don't have to have the user enter in a value. It will automatically be assigned 20. Same with this one, we have a default value. It's an integer field, validators, we have a minimum value, and the power, again, we switch back to positive integer field here. We give it a default value, and we have the maximum value it can be. Okay, so I can just be done here, right? I can just have my model and start plugging stuff in. However, when you queried before, I'm not sure if he showed this very well during class, but did y'all try to query and pull up a Pokemon with just a table defined and nothing else? Do you remember what that looked like? Nope. Okay.
Yeah.
Nope. Yes. How did that
Yes, we
look?
did. It was just an empty table.
An empty table. Okay. Do
Mhm.
you remember what it output here in the terminal? Like if once you created a Pokemon and you tried to get that information back.
Hmm. Uh, don't quite remember. Well, if you created a Pokemon and you tried to get the information back, um, it would just show the one Pokemon that was in there with,
Okay.
their name and stuff.
So let's do something here. Let's think back to when I'm commenting this out because I don't want to mess with the Move app right now. We're gonna go back to the Pokemon here. Um, this right here, under
Hmm.
method. Going back and thinking about classes. Um, let's start up this backend so we can start working with this. So does it give us the instructions in the README? Yes, to run this. This is why it's important to write READMEs for your projects when you work on them to tell people how to use it. So all I have to do is Docker compose up. And it's going to go ahead, already exists because I actually did this the other day just to at least make sure the Docker compose was working. Okay, so if I look at Docker PS, we can see my Postgres database is up and running, which is all I expect to be up and running. Yes. And then we are working in, okay, so I'm going to have to spin up my Django server individually because we haven't added it to Docker yet. So am I at the same level as manage.py? Yes. So Python run server. Okay, so my application is up and running. I'm going to leave that up and running there because I can't, this is the server, it's run it. Now, does anybody remember what happens after you create an app before you can start working with it? Does my database have anything? Like if I just opened up this project and started looking at this and started up my Postgres instance here, does my database have anything in it right now? No, it does not. What's important to do to your database in with your Django here?
You have to make migrations first and then migrate.
Exactly. So that is also another manage.py function there. Thank you. We need to make migrations. This will look at all your apps and make those models in our database. So we could see it's found one in Pokemon app and to create, because I commented out my move one, right? I don't want this to be made yet because I'm just showing you an example. So now we can migrate and make sure our database has all the tables and fields. Looks like it might already have it. Okay. And then we can get in there and start messing with it. So let's go Python manage.py into the shell. Let's take a look at what's going on here. Okay, so wonder if I have anything in, trying to remember how I can do this. Let's So we still need to import our Pokemon model to be able to work with it here. So we're going to say from Pokemon app models, import Pokemon. And then I'm going to see if there's something in my database already, because I don't know if there is. To see that, I'm going to select just ID 1, because if there's something in there, it should be like ID 1, 2, or 3. Or I can get all. I'll get all. So we'll do Pokemon. Pokemon in my database is going to be this class objects get, is it underscore all? No, it's not get all. It's just gonna be all. Pokemon objects all. So this is saying get all Pokemon objects that I have created. Okay, and so now I'm going to just call Pokemon and see what I get. Okay, so I do have one in there. I have a Pikachu. I guess it hasn't been caught yet. So it probably has that caught equals false. So now going back to my model, if I don't have this dunder method, I'm gonna have to migrate again if I do this. But if I didn't have this method, it wouldn't say this nice little line down here. Remember back when we were doing classes originally, if we didn't have this, it just gave you an object ID, right? When you tried to show an instance of a class, it would just give you that object ID and nothing useful. So it's important for every class you make, if you want to see something actual and workable in your terminal here, make sure you have a dunder string method underneath your bottle. Okay, so let's, is it just quit? Yes, yay. Okay, so we are going to, I'm going to stop our server now because we're still working. We're adding a new Pokemon app. So let's go back to this model. And we could see we don't have a string method here, so let's make a string method, because if somebody queries and wants to get all the moves, it's just going to get a whole bunch of object IDs. So we don't want that. And we're going to add a few more methods as well. I'm going to save time by just copying and we'll look through them. Okay, so we see this doesn't, we're going to have to deal with this in a little bit, but here's our string method. It's going to just show you the name and then all the information about the move in our terminal. We also have a function here called increase the max PP, which will take in a value. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, and it will take that max PP of the move and increase it by that value and then save it. So that's what that function does. And then our clean method. The clean just helps make sure our model is, it follows this extra validation we put in. So when we run this method on our model, it should check and make sure that our PP for this move is not greater than the max PP it can have. It says it doesn't know what validation error is, and that's because we haven't imported it yet. So if you're trying to use a built-in function or method like this, and it's giving you the yellow squiggly, chances are it's because you need to import it. So from Django dot, this is core exceptions, I guess. You would just find this in other lectures, readmes for this one. We're going to import that validation error. Awesome. So I still need to address this. I'm going to write a custom validation for this name. Where do I put that? Where do I put my custom validations that I want to make for this model?
You have to create a new file.
I'm sorry, Art, what was that?
I'm thinking you have to create a new file.
Yes. Where do I put this new file and what is it called?
Um, you would have to put it under your moves app. And it would just be like validations.
Okay, pretty close, but I'm going to name it validators.
Validator.
Um, you can name it what you want because you are just importing, but this is a common practice here to name it validators. Um, Now, there are other files that are very specific to how you name them because Django actually looks for those names, but this is not one of them because we are going to just import it up here instead. We're going to say from this new file we created, which exists in this directory we're in right now, look at the validators file and import, we're going to make a function called validate move date. And that's going to be in this file. So you can name it whatever you want. You just make sure you point to the correct file, but common standard practice is to name it validators so that everybody knows where it's at instead of just you. I'm just going to copy and paste this because we're not going to spend too much time on this, but this is my validation for the name. Uses some good regex here to, I guess, make sure it's all within the alphabet here. I am not great at regex right off the bat, so, and it doesn't tell me in the README. Great. All right, we could Google it and see what it actually does, but okay, so here we made sure we imported all the modules we needed to, this is the regex one, modules, did I say models, to write our validation. Now when we go back to, then this is a function, right? In our validators file, we make functions that we can call within other areas. So here, if I come back, now we can see it is not got a squiggly line or anything anymore. It looks like it's being found appropriately and used appropriately. It weirds me out that it's in white, but I'm not getting any errors. So we're going to keep going with that. Okay, so I made changes to this model, right? First off, this didn't exist when I did my first migration. I only did the Pokemon model at that time when I made migrations. Anytime you touch this model's file, you always need to make migrations again and migrate because this does not automatically get applied to your database when you make changes. So I touch this file, I make migrations, and just get used to that. So now we can see when I make migrations, it did find that, hey, there is now a new move model that we need to make. So I guess we'll go ahead and migrate that to the database. And we can see it's okay. It applied an initial migration here, and it took all the admin auth, which these are built in here. And then we have our Move app, which is what we just added. We have the Pokemon app that already exists, but might have needed to be updated. We don't know. And Sessions also built in. So now my backend, or not my backend, my Postgres database should have both Pokemon and moves in there. We're going to create a test file. We're just going to copy and paste this test file. It's always good once you make a model to go ahead and test it, make sure it works as you intend, so that when you create an instance of a move, it is appropriately validated and outputs as you would expect. So where do I put tests? Not a trick question.
Inside the test.py file.
Perfect. Yep. So I'll make tests and put it under here. You can also remove these individual test files and just make a test on the outside as well to kind of capture all. But by doing it within these individual apps, we are making tests specific to the models we're working with here, kind of keeping everything separate. So also a good thing, good habit to get into. So I took this from the README. We are importing test case because we inherit from a test case that Django already has written on the back end for us. Thank you. And we've got our validation error. And we're pulling in our move model so that we can work with it and create instances of it. Here we can see we wrote our class of tests. And these, I want to say, have to be named _test for Python, or for this test case. I don't think it's for the test case. It's for tests in general to work when you call it. Pretty sure you have to have it named _test. Could be wrong. We'd have to look at documentation for that, but follow conventions and just make sure you name it like move, Pokemon, whatever else we add _test. We're inheriting from test case. And then we define some individual methods here, or functions, methods interchangeably. I think it's method under class, to test different aspects. This one's very well written. And it starts with test. All these tests start with the test _whatever. So this first test is to create a move instance. It's going to make a new move. It's going to do the full clean, and make sure that it just exists. Assert is not none. So just make sure when you create a move that the move is there. Easy test. This one, create a move with an incorrect name. So with this one, it looks like we've got a 4 in here, and our regex looked like it wanted it all to be letters or part of the alphabet. So this one should fail. This test is meant to fail, and that's what we want to happen. We create a new move with an improper name, and we can see that max PP is 20, but our clean method and our PP is 25, and our clean method should catch this and say, this cannot be more than your max. So we make a new move here. We make the new move, an instance of move, and we're going to try to clean it, which when we run the clean, is not going to work, and we expect it to fail. And so, oh, now I'm getting myself confused. Fail immediately with the given message. Okay, so we're going to take that exception when it fails, and we want the exception to equal this here, which if we look at our clean method, it should have an output that shows this sentence. No, validation error. That's just what the test says. Answer. Okay. I'll have to look into this and get back to you on how this test works. But it's always the backer ones that get me a little weird. The like ones that you write to fail and want to fail. Yeah, so I'll look into that and get you guys a little more info on how this works. And I think that there's a print in there. We could see dictionary, message dictionary. Assert true. I think it's looking in the error that we get and pulling out the name. Okay, never mind. Not spending too much time on that. I'll look at that later. So we have our test file now. So when we run this, it should pass. Before, let's see. I did not run the test file, so I don't know if it actually passes. Does anybody remember, how do I run my tests?
Python. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, Python manage py test.
Okay, so it found 4 tests I only have 2 here. So what did it do?
Tiffany, there's another test folder on your tree. Do you think it's maybe pulling in tests from that folder as well?
Exactly. So when we run at the manage.python level here, it's looking for all tests that you've written in all apps. So we can see we have 2 tests here in our Pokemon test file, and then we have the 2 tests here in our move tests. So it found all of them and ran all of them, and they all are successful. So our tests work. I expect now when I create a move, um, it should work appropriately and I can um, use it as I intend. So now let's make a move because our goal here is where I have a Pikachu in my database already. I saw that. But I want to start making, I want to give moves to the Pokemon. So I want to be able to add like an electric type move to Pikachu. So let's go back into our shell. And can everybody see the bottom there? I hate that it gets so low down on my screen. Um, this is where we go to input stuff into our database. Is in this shell. We're going to be importing these models. We're basically doing stuff in the shell here that we will eventually be doing in other files in Django, but we're showing you from the ground up. You know, gotta start at the very lowest level here, which is just working on it in our Python shell. So we're going to import from our Pokemon, not Pokemon, from our Move app models. We're going to import Move. We came into Move map and we're grabbing the models file. From the Move app models file, we're going to import Move class. And now let's make so our README says psychic, but I have a Pikachu in there that I'm going to be working with. So we're going to make an electric move. What is it? Thundershock. That's a good one. It's just going to get a really strong one right off the bat. So Thundershock is going to be a new move. So I'm going to make a new instance of a move. Excuse me. We give it a variable name because we can't just create a move instance down here in the terminal. We have to save it after we create it. Otherwise, it will not go into our database. It'll just exist in our shell here. So I'm calling this Thundershock so that eventually later I can save it by targeting the Thundershock variable here. So this is going to be a new instance of a move. Thinking back to our model here, the only thing I have to pass in is the name. That's the only thing we said can't be empty or blank. Everything else has a default value. Thank you. So I don't have to add those. I can if I want to, but I don't want to right now. That's too much work. We're just going to pass in a name. So the move name is going to equal Thundershock. Okay, so I'm making a new instance of the move class with the name here that we've defined in our fields equal to Thundershock. And now can't be done. I've just defined this Thundershock variable in our shell, but I need to save it into our database. So now we're going to Thundershock save. Dot save. And this will send it back to our Postgres database and add it into that table. So now if it should exist in our database if I were to go in there and start digging around and looking at it, but I'm not going to. We're going to keep moving along because we're now getting to the important part of the lecture, which is we have a Pokemon, we have a move. I want to start connecting the two. I want to add moves to the Pokemon. Right now, there's nothing connecting them. We have a move model, we have a Pokemon model, but there's nothing linking the two. Now, this is, if you look in the README, I'm going to drag this over here, revisiting our different types of associations we can have. We have a one-to-one, we have a many-to-one, one-to-many, and in Django, we use a foreign key field to identify that. We'll look at an example of that after a bit. And here's our many-to-many field. This is how Django handles those different types of associations between our tables. So when you're making your schema and you've determined that there's going to be a many-to-many relationship between, you would use this to identify that. So we're going to look at how we can make this relationship between Pokemon and moves. What kind of relationship is this going to be, first off? What do we think? So a Pokemon can have several different moves under it. And then a move name is going to be given to, different Pokemon, right? So what kind of relationship is that sounding like?
Sounds like many to many.
Yes, yep. It is going to be a many-to-many relationship. So that way we can have lots of different assignments between the two. So how I do that, it doesn't make sense for me to come to a move and assign Pokemon under it, right? I don't want to just keep piling up Pokemon under a Thunderstruck move. It makes more sense for me to have a Pokemon and then be able to see a list of its moves, right? Makes way more sense. So I'm going to come under my Pokemon model and add a field called moves. And this is going to basically hold my list of moves that I'm going to make with this many-to-many relationship. And the type of field it is, and the README showed you what you use, is it's going to be a many-to-many field. Okay, so Python or Django manages a lot behind the scenes for these associations. All you have to do is give it a field type here. There's no creating extra tables. There's no making sure something's set up on the model's end or the move's end. We don't have to put anything over here because Django is smart enough to know that when I use a many-to-many field and I'm going to give it the, let's see if it says it here in a nice way. It says through. So you give it the model that you're going to, let me admit Nicole again. You're going to identify what this is this many-to-many association is with. So we already said that this is going to be moves. We want to pull in lots of different moves into this field here. So we're going to give it our move model, which we need to import, right? It's telling us I don't know what move model is, so let's go ahead and import it from our move app models. Import move. Okay, so now I'm saying I want to set up a many-to-many relationship with moves so that I can have lots of different moves assigned to here, and that when I go to a move, it can go out to lots of different Pokemon. It's not just assigned to one. This is all I need here. I don't need to put anything over here. You may want to because it's like, oh, I need to show on the other side how it links up, but don't. Django knows. As soon as you passed it this many-to-many field, it knows that there's going to be a many-to-many relationship between the two tables, and that's it. So now in our, let's see, down here, we don't have a clean method yet. So we're going to write a clean method too, I guess, because we're not going to have more than 4 moves per Pokemon. So that's funny. The readme's not tabbed correctly. If there's a move, so let's just say if the moves and its count, so it's moves, I've named it moves. If the moves field, and we're going to count how many items are in this, because it's a many to many, so it's going to be a list of many different moves. So let's count how many are in that list. And if that count is greater than 4, then we're going to raise a validation error. Oh my gosh, I've imported it up there, didn't I? Maybe I didn't. No. No, I didn't. So that's Django core exceptions, import validation error. Okay, now I should find it. Perfect. So we're going to raise a validation error, and we're going to say a Pokemon can have at most 4 loops. Okay. So this is just making sure that I can only have 4 different instances of move in this field. So that's all I have to do to set up my many-to-many relationship. I don't have to touch models because it doesn't make sense to have anything under models, but we will be able to access Pokemon from models, or from the move, sorry, models, from the move model in a way. And I will show you how to query that a little bit later. And it's going to be a little bit different than how we've been querying up to this point. So we have our moves. I've touched this model. What's the first thing I have to do after I touch my model? I'm ready to start working with it.
To make migrations.
Perfect. I'm gonna just pound that into y'all, because the minute you forget and start working, where's my field? I'm gonna ask if you made migrations first and migrated. Okay, so now we can see when I make migrations, it says, okay, I see in your Pokemon app, we added a field moves. And we're going to go ahead and migrate that to our database. So now my database should have all these fields here. So this can get interesting if you already have entries in your database. If you start throwing on additional fields in your database and you expect it to have a value, like if I made this a required, so if I added like another one, like another character field, and I didn't have anything saying that like a default value or a null equals true or whatever, when I go to run migrations, it will look in the database and says, hey, you have all these entries in here. Like you have a Pikachu, and you just created this new field, but I don't have a value in that field for Pikachu because we put Pikachu in there before we mess with the database and added more fields, right? So it's going to, when you run migrations, it's going to prompt you to either, I forgot the 2 options. One of them, though, is to input a value that it will apply to all of those fields on existing entries. So if I had 50 different Pokemon in there and I added like a new, oh, what's a good example? This one doesn't require, obviously, this one doesn't require you to have something input with it because it let us make migrations without that. But if I had like, I know this isn't real, but like age, and I required an age, it would be like, hey, these 50 Pokemon don't have an age. Do you want to give them all a default value at this point? And you'd be like, yes, give it this number, and it will fill in that age for all the existing entries. I sometimes that that's the best way to go about it, but other times you will get a little crazy. What you could do is you can delete your migrations, like even the initial one. Um, that will take everything out of your database. Or should, no, I think we have persistent on, do we? Or a volume? Yeah. Okay. This volumes, did anybody explain this in the past class? No? Okay, so typically what you may be used to is it may have been explained earlier in the Postgres stuff and just forgotten. I can't remember. But typically when you spin up um, an image here or a container of Postgres and you work in it, when you bring that container down, all the data goes away, typically. So we use something called a volume and it saves it locally so that even when you bring the container down, when you run it again, your data persists. It stays in the database. Great thing for real life. Not so great when you're doing development and you have messed it up real bad, and now you have a database that's all over the place because that persists. Have to find there's a way to remove the database container with the volume as well. I gotta find that command. I think you just add like a -b afterwards. I'll find that for you because if you are making these migrations and you just cannot figure out how to add that value for these new required fields, there's two ways to fix it if you don't know how to add that value. One is delete your migrations and instead of making it required, add like a default value or add blank equals true, null equals true. That will allow you to add that field without requiring you to enter anything in that field. So that's one way to fix that if you cannot understand the prompts telling you to fill it with something. Another way to fix it is kill your whole database, volume and all, and rebuild from the ground up. So it will remove all the entries you've made in there so far, and you'll just have to make new Pokemon and make sure you include that new field when you do. So those are the two ways to fix that. Okay, so let's see. We added that many-to-many field. We've added our clean method here. We've made migrations. We are ready now to get back in our shell and start associating moves with our Pokemon. So let's get back in the shell first. Manage PY shell. Okay. So this is a new shell instance. So anything I typed in my previous shell instance is no more. I don't have Thunderstruck. That's not a thing anymore. If I do, did I do Thunderstruck? Struck? Is that what I named it? Thundershock. Okay. I've been watching on Netflix the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders show, and they do the Thunderstruck performance. Okay, so if I do that, see, it's not there anymore. A new shell is fresh, clean, no previous variables are defined in this one. Okay, so we once again have to import everything that we're going to be working with in this shell. So we are going to work with a Pokemon and we're going to work with a move. So let's import those models first and foremost. So from move app, models, import move, and from Pokemon app, models, import Pokemon. Okay. So first thing I want to do is create a Pokemon. Oh, no, I have a Pokemon. I have a Pikachu in there. I know I have a Pikachu in there. We already queried the database when we did that, Pokemon select all thing or Pokemon all. I I would have to go in the database to see the ID, but I am assuming it's ID 1 because I haven't done anything else to this database. So I'm going to assume that right now. And I'm going to say that Pokemon 1 is equal to, now this is how we get just that individual instance of Pokemon. Not all of them, I just want one of them. So we're going to grab that object. We're going to get the object where the ID is equal to 1. Oop. So earlier when we wanted all of the Pokemon objects that we made, we did I do that in here? No. Oh wait, this probably won't work. No, this is fine. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Okay, so before I did Pokemon objects dot all for all of them with the parentheses. But now I don't want all of them, I just want one specific one, so I'm doing again. There is documentation. I will find the link and pass it off to y'all on the different ways to query your Postgres database through this Django ORM. It's different. So this would be like a select all from Pokemon where ID equals 1. Okay, that's the sequel for this, is select all from Pokemon where ID equals 1. But in Django, we say Pokemon object get ID equals 1. It's just how it is. Okay, so let's get that. So objects, Pokemon objects. It even tells me objects get. Okay, so it says there's nothing matching there. There could be a few reasons. Did we? But I think one of them mainly is because our server isn't running here. So let's get our Pokemon project, our Pokedex project running. Now our server is running. Let's do that first. Okay, so I wonder if I have to do it all again. Doesn't hurt. No. Pokemon matching. So it probably doesn't exist in there. We probably didn't have to have the server running. Let's see. Is it 2? Okay, so the Pokemon in there is 2. I guess at one point I had another Pokemon in there and I probably deleted it. And remember in SQL, these unique IDs, even if you delete something, you cannot reuse that ID ever again. It's going to create a new one. So 1 is gone. There is no more 1. But 2 exists, and I think that is Pikachu. So let's see. Let's do Pokemon 1. It's Pikachu. Okay, so that's what we wanted. So now Pokemon 1 is this instance of Pikachu. I've defined that in the variables here. Now I want to take this Pikachu moves field and assign that Thundershock to it. Which Thundershock, we just created the move app. We just input Thundershock. That is going to be 1. And I know for sure because I haven't messed with that. That's a brand new thing. So how we can do that, first we need to grab the move that we want to add to Pikachu. You could possibly put it all in one line for this Pikachu move assignment, but it's easier to just go ahead and grab the move first, and then we will assign the move to Pikachu. So we've got the Pokemon, this Pikachu, and this move 1. We're going to grab this one. This is going to be the instance of moves here where ID equals 1. Okay, so now when I type move 1, we can see I grabbed Thundershock. So I've grabbed this instance of the move that we made, Thundershock. So I have Pikachu as my Pokemon 1, and I have Thundershock. We want to add Thundershock to this moves field in Pikachu. So true to how we learned with classes before, how I can access this moves parameter within this class, or it's not parameter. What is this? I can't remember. Field.
Field, yep.
Okay. It's been a minute since we've done classes. I didn't remember the right name, but that is, we could just target that by grabbing the Pikachu, which we've identified as Pokemon 1, and we're targeting that moves field within this class. So Pikachu's moves field here, I want that to, I want to add to it. So how we do for our many-to-many is we need to add something. It's treated, so in the README it says this is going to be treated like a set. This moves is going to be treated like a set. So you can't just assign something in there or equal it. You have to add to this set. We're going to add or remove from this set. So in Django, you have add and remove methods for this many-to-many relationship. And at this one, we're going to add our move 1. We've already established that move 1 is now the instance of Thunderstruck. And we're going to add it to this list, this set of moves under Pikachu. So now, how can I look at all the moves that Pikachu knows? How would I query that in this shell here? Now, also, before I do that, do I have to save this?
Which one are you in?
What do we think? I just added.
Yeah, you got to save it.
Actually, I do not.
Nope.
Nope. So this add already does that for us.
Okay.
So that's grabbing our, and actually, if you just grab any of these, oh my gosh, any of these fields and just equal to something, it will set that value. We don't have to, so we have to save when we're creating a new instance.
Okay.
So I just added the moves. I don't have to save it. It's added on. So when I wanted to see my Pokemon before, I was able to just do Pokemon 1, and that's Pikachu, right? So we're going to try to target something on Pikachu. We know I want to see Pikachu's moves. Can't do that. Gives me something crazy. This is a whole bunch of, it's a many-to-many related manager object. So it gives me the object. In order to see everything in this set, in this many-to-many set, we have to do, I did this earlier, all. We have to call this dot all for it. So now this will go into this object and just show me everything. So Pikachu only has one move assigned to it, which is Thundershock. But perfect, we did it. We added a move to this. So now you might be wondering, okay, so I can query the Pokemon's moves, but this is a many-to-many relationship. So in theory, I should be able to come into the move and see all the Pokemon that have it associated with it, right? Because that's how many-to-many work. It pulls both those IDs into an intermediary table so you can go back and forth and see all the different relationships. But we don't have anything in the move model to show us how we can query that. So it's easy here because we can just do Pokemon.moves.all, or we could probably grab one of them out of there too. That gets a little complicated, but yeah, we could just see moves.all. There's nothing like that over here. in order to get the query from the other side, you have to do, let's see, you have to do something called you query the set. Okay, so we've already identified our move as move 1. So in order to see the Pokemon associated with this move 1, we use the move 1s. We're going to use the class that's associated with it, which is Pokemon. So we're going to say, give us the Pokemon set. You have to do the class that you're targeting underscore set. And then you still have to do an all. So it's almost like when we go the right way, like from Pokemon moves all. Here we do give us the Pokemon set all, because there's nothing in our fields that we can grab. So we have to grab this set. So now we can see every Pokemon that is associated with that move that we've identified. So that's the way to go backwards in this many-to-many. This is kind of annoying though. Who wants to, find the model name and put set at the end? Who's going to remember that? So there is another easier way to do the backwards lookup, or I keep calling it the backwards, but from the other table to this one. So what we can do is we could come over to our moves model here, and we can add something called a related name. So this is going to give something to the other table for us to step back into. Kind of weird to think about at first, but this is not going to be, you're never going to use this on this end. You're not going to say Pokemon dot related name or anything. This is going to be from the move backwards. So you think about how we queried before. We said, I want to see the moves Pokemon, right? So this related name is going to be what you want to see from the moves. So we're going to call this Pokemon. Okay, so now when I type move dot Pokemon, I don't have to put set because I gave a related name in this many-to-many field. I'll be able to just target the name Pokemon, and it will know that I'm talking about this many-to-many moves field. So if I queried right now, would this work? Art's shaking her head, yes. But I touched this model. Right, I heard a no. No, it's not going to work. I touched this model. I changed it. So I need to make migrations and migrate before this will work. So, okay, let's do that real quick then. Let's quit this. Oh man, we're going to have to, that's fine. That's the annoying part. We have to do this all over again then. Make migrations. It says, oh, you altered a field on Pokemon. That's right, I sure did. I put a related name in there so we don't have to do that weird underscore set nonsense. And we migrate that. Perfect. So now we can get back in our shell. We're going to import everything again from, I'm going to copy. Oh, I guess it's probably faster for me to just type it out. Yeah, maybe it's not faster for me to. Then after this, we will take a break. Okay, from that import Pokemon. Okay, so our database has both these though still, and Pikachu has already been assigned this move. So we don't have to do any like establishing the relationship between them. We just added a related name that now we can reverse query from moves and find all Pokemon associated with it. So let's just identify a move which we will say our move one again is going to be that Thunderstruck is going, or Thundershock. It's still on that. We're going to find that object. The move object, which we already established, is the one with the ID equals 1. So now, before I had to do this weird Pokemon set. But I don't have to do that now. I should be able to just use the related name that I've established. So move Pokemon all. And we could see it worked. There's the reverse lookup for our many-to-many relationship. Again, you don't have to use a related name, but then you use the model it comes from and underscore set. All right. And that, let me verify that was all we had for our lecture today. Yeah. So one thing we did not do is we did not add this move app. We did not register this here, so we cannot do anything with this yet in our admin suite, where you can go in and add things on that UI, which is why we're doing it here. We could, and then you would just need to. It's kind of cool how they handle the one-to-many and many-to-many there. They have like drop downs and stuff you could select. But that will be at a later time. You will see how to go in there and do that. Or you can mess with it and just follow suit, register your model name and then make sure you have your super user created. And you can see then how that works in the admin suite. Okay. Any questions before I stop recording? And then I'm going to go over a couple other things here. Yep. All right. Let me stop recording.